Hello, Dr. Sushma Singh this side. Today in Unit 30 Civil Society Movements and Grassroots Initiatives, let us start this lecture with the topic Civil Society as Social Movement. We shall be discussing in detail various aspects of social movement and their transformation. In this section, let us know very briefly what we mean by social movement and what are the relationship between social movements and civil society initiatives or activism. Conventionally, social movements have broadly been perceived as organized efforts to bring about changes in the thought, beliefs, values, attitudes, relationships, and major institutions in society, or to resist changes in any of the above structural elements of the society. Social movements are viewed as intended and organized collective actions based on certain defined aims, methodology for collective mobilization, distinct ideology, identified leadership, and organization. However, since the late 1960s, especially in the wake of a proliferation of new forms of collective protest, resistance, and mobilization like the students' environmental, black civil rights, women's movements, etc. In the United States and Western Europe, efforts have been made to identify new elements in social movements. It has been widely recognized that the social movements help to generate a sense of collective identity and new ideas that recognize the reality itself. It redefines a mode of collective existence. Mercy has emphasized on collective identity of formation. To him, social movements grow around relationships of new social identity that are voluntarily conceived to empower members in defense of this identity. Social movements are framed based on a collective identity of various groups, namely women, environmentalists, students, peasants, workers, etc., who are organized on the basis of common identity and interest. To Alan Scott, in a social movement, the actor's collective identity is linked to his or her understanding of their social situation. To him, a social movement is a collective actor constituted by individuals who understand themselves to have a common interest and at least some significant part of their social existence a common identity. However, participation in social movement may not always be for the quest of an identity. Rather, it may be for the gratification of political and material interests. Tarot and many others are of the view that social movements manifest in response to increase in the potential political opportunities and growing receptivity of the state to the activities of the challenging groups. In general, these scholars emphasize the various resources involved in the manifestation of the operationalization of social movements. This approach, known as resource mobilization, assumes that the collective actions are related to the specific opportunity structures. Here, importance is given to the rationality of human action, whereby the participants in the social movement calculate the costs and benefit of their participatory action in collective mobilization. In this approach, social movements are seen either as the creation of entrepreneurs skillful in the manipulation or mobilization of social resources or the playing out of the social tensions and conflicts. Thus, the motivation of the actors is seen as rational economic action. The resource mobilization theory indeed aims to interpret those sets of social movements that are the visible parts of the American social reality in management terms. It is linked to the policy problem of containment. Now let us move to the topic civil society and social movement, the interface. In the context of globalization or otherwise, there have been claims of universality of social society. It is argued at one point that specific economic, social, and political conditions influence the growth and functioning of the civil society, and thereby it cannot be universal. On the other hand, there has been an argument that as there have been universal processes like modernization, secularization, democratization, globalization, and so on, the claim of universality of civil society has emerged to be a reality. In view of the emergence of global social movements for human rights, animal rights, ecology, and environment, etc., global civil society has become a reality. Phenomenal expansion of information and communication technology has smoothed the global emergence and the networking of civil societies as a social movement. In this backdrop, let us examine the interface between the social society and social movements. There are important parallels between social movements and civil society initiatives. It is rather at times pointed out that the civil society initiatives are variants of social movements. Here, before we go into identifying these variants, we should know the parallels. Both social movements and civil society have structures like organizations of well identified leadership and ideology. Civil society initiatives and social movements are social processes which undergo several stages of progression from mobilization to intensive collective action. Both structures and the processes have support bases or bodies of followers who are mobilized through diverse means to get their objectives fulfilled. In general, both social movement and civil society pledge to, for change in the established order of society. However, many civil societies or social movements also work to resist change in society. For example, many religious organizations pledge for the fundamentalist position in society. Both civil society and social movement occupy a civil space in society. The creation of a new collective identity is an essential part of both social movements and social society. Collective identities are evolved either based on either issues or ideological choices. However, identities also get reconstructed or transformed through the processes of sustained mobilization. Though a good deal of moral authority and idealism are attached to civil society activism and to special movements, at times both these processes are initiated by enterprising people for the maximization of specific interest. Here both processes are amenable to caption by the state. However, notwithstanding these parallels, social movements are broader categories or agencies. At times, social movements look for a radical change by attacking the pre-existing power structure of society. For example, the Naxalite movement. Civil society, on the other hand, looks for gradual change within the existing arrangement. Though civil society initiatives tend to be apolitical, many a time they seek political questions and political situation through developmental activities. Indeed, in the contemporary development discourse of development with empowerment, civil society division is very much involved in the political issues at the grassroots. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for listening.